Season 3 of Heartstopper has just been released on Netflix, and I think it's safe to say that this was the best season that the show's produced. It's always difficult for a show to top the previous installment, but this one managed to do it yet again. Focusing on many deep themes such as eating disorders, OCD, trans rights, gender and sexual identity, progression in relationships, and also the realization that one can be comfortable with themselves whilst not needing to rely on another. Let's dive right into Season 3 of the show, break down every main character arc, their journey, and discuss what it all meant. So let's get into it. Here is Heartstopper Season 3 Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Before I start, I just want to check if anybody else found the song that Charlie's band Queer Intentions played super catchy. It was actually such a good song. Charlie and Nick. Charlie and Nick went through a lot in this season, especially Charlie. Charlie's story was focused around him having an eating disorder and it being present because of the impulsive thoughts that he had in his head, which was connected to OCD. We saw a vulnerability in Charlie like we'd never seen before, and with that came a side to Nick that we hadn't seen either. One that wanted to make sure that he was okay, but that also meant that there was fear within him of leaving Charlie on his own. Both Charlie and Nick's relationship developed a lot throughout this season of the show, as by the end of it, we saw that the both of them were being intimate with each other in the bedroom, something which was a huge step for the both of them. Charlie being prepared to not wear his t-shirt when around Nick marked a massive transformation, and it showed real growth in the character. This is because that was the area that he was most insecure about due to the scars that he had. Nick and Charlie are a duo that are inseparable, but the conclusion of the season was focused on Nick going to look at different unis, but before viewing them, he was prepared to stay local, because it meant that he'd be close to Charlie. However, when Nick viewed Leeds University, it resonated with him a lot, and it seemed like it was going to be the university that he chose to study at. That is where the cliffhanger was left, us not knowing what decision Nick was going to make, but it does seem like their relationship is going to be put to the test. Charlie was a lot more comfortable on his own when compared to the start of the season, as we saw with him drumming on stage. But being far apart for an elongated period of time might put strain on the relationship, especially with Nick meeting a lot of new people and being in a completely different part of the country. Nick is starting to realize that he can't live his life worrying about Charlie, and that if they're meant to be together, then things will eventually work out. He put his life on hold for Charlie throughout this season, and that's no healthy way to live. Elle and Tao. Elle and Tao were both exploring their relationship in different ways, and we saw that Tao was almost getting worried that Elle going to her arts college was going to drive a wedge between them, hence why he was overcompensating at the start of the season by going on lots of dates with her and being overbearing. So much so that he lost a lot of his own identity because he was so fixated on his relationship. It was with Elle going to college and seeing that their relationship withstood being separated that he realized that he needed to focus on something for himself, and that's where the filmmaking came into the equation. His father used to record him when he was younger, and this was almost like a way of Tao being able to reconnect with his father since him being gone. But also, it ignited a creative spark inside of his head, something that he thought he never had. Tao used his films to help others around him, such as Charlie when he was in the clinic, and also Elle when she was feeling the weight of what happened during the radio interview. Elle also went on a journey in this season of the show, in the sense that her career in art was taking off as she gained several thousand followers and she was looking to study it at university. The fact that Elle was transgender was focused on a bit more in this season of the show, and we got an insight into the struggles that she faced on a daily basis and the view that a part of society can put upon trans people. This was highlighted most with the radio interview that she did, but also with the news articles that were appearing on her phone. At the end of the finale, we saw that she was thinking of going to study art in Europe, a place where she felt like she'd be more accepted and be able to thrive. Tao said that he'd get a job and join her there, so it seems like their relationship is something that they're going to try and make work long distance. Isaac. Isaac's arc in this season of the show was one which followed on directly from season 2, where he came to the realization that he was asexual and aromantic. However, within his friend group, everybody was coupled up with one another, and he was often either left on his own or forced to third wheel and feel extremely uncomfortable just being on the sidelines watching on. I felt for Isaac in the early parts of the season because you could tell that he was struggling, but everybody was just so caught up in being with their significant other that it was almost like safety in numbers, and he was just the odd one out. When he was at the aquarium, he felt like it was time to come out to the group and explain why there was a sense of frustration on his side for quite a while, and once he did, there was a sense of understanding from everybody there. Isaac valued his friends deeply, and that was where he would receive love and also give his love. So with everybody drifting away, it made sense as to why he felt as though he was on his own. Tara and Darcy. Tara and Darcy's relationship was something that I was questioning if it would still be standing by the end of the season, but we saw that it was still going strong. Tara was going through a lot of stress due to her facing academic pressures because she was a high achiever, and with that came worry about what she was going to do after she left school. She was tipped to go to Oxford, but after visiting it, she realised that it wasn't the right place for her. Darcy, on the other hand, went through a lot of personal development throughout this season. They started off exploring different pronouns and then came to the understanding that they were non-binary and opened up to Tara about it. So both of these characters went through completely different experiences, and they were the perfect example of not needing to live in each other's pockets to have a healthy relationship. They didn't live with one another, they did their own things, and they got on just fine. Tori and Michael. I was actually really happy with Tori's arc of finding somebody in this season of the show. She's always been there for her brother Charlie and been so supportive of him that she'd almost forgotten that she had her own life to live. So her companionship with Michael just felt like perfect timing for her, especially as her brother was starting to get a hold of his mental illness a bit more and thrive on his own. One issue that the show tackled with her was the pressure of putting labels on a relationship and what that actually means. When in reality, like Michael said, it didn't actually mean that much. It was just a label that people had invented. However, by the end of the final episode, we saw that they clearly liked each other in a romantic sense, but I don't think they put a specific boyfriend and girlfriend tag on it, because they were happy with just the way things were. My review of the season. I really enjoyed this season of the show. I thought it was quite an emotional season when compared to the previous two. I don't know whether it was because it was a bit darker with all of the issues that they were tackling, but also there was a deep sense of care between all of the characters, and I feel like sometimes that can be emotional to watch for a completely different reason. The first 3 episodes in particular, where Charlie was struggling with his eating disorder and when he was keeping it from his family, it was just heartbreaking to watch. When he read the note to his mother and father, that was probably the most emotional moment in the entirety of the season, just seeing how much everybody cared about him and wanted him to be okay. Even though the show handled some very heavy subjects with Nick and Charlie, it did a good job at balancing out the storylines with all of the other characters. For example, the stress that Tara was feeling about going to university, Tao and Elle's relationship developing and her progressing within her career in art, Darcy and the fact that they were coming to terms with the fact that they were non-binary, and Isaac and his desire to just be accepted for who he was and be comfortable around others. At no point were any of the stories less valuable than the others, and it made for a really enjoyable watch. The song choices in this season were exceptional too, and they always allowed the emotions to come pouring out when it was complementing a scene. There was humour embedded throughout this season as well, and Charlie mentioning how he didn't like Marvel was kind of meta, in the sense that the actor is obviously starring in Agatha All Along at the moment, which is a Marvel show, so it did make me laugh whenever that was mentioned. I think Heartstopper is a really good show for highlighting many different things for young people and showing them that no matter who you are, what you are, you have a place and you belong, and you can find happiness somewhere in the world. When I was younger, there wasn't really a show like this, but in today's world, I think this show definitely has a place on the shelf, and it probably helps a lot of people. My one thing with this season is that the finale didn't really feel like a finale. It just kind of ended, which I thought was a bit of a shame, but I suppose they did definitely set up a season 4 with the whole going off to university story for Nick. So it's going to be interesting to see how Nick and Charlie's relationship fares, because Nick definitely resonated more with Leeds. So, there you have it, Heartstopper Season 3 ending explained.